Hey there guys, welcome to the next Friday time lapse here on the channel. This is going to be a pretty exciting time lapse. It's going to be on the one, the only, the YouTube sensation, the Nyan Cat. So hopefully you guys are going to like it. It's going to be a pretty complex image. That's why there's a lot of time on this one. This is a little over 10 minutes. This is going to be the longest time lapse I've ever featured on the channel. And it's sped up to about 4 times its normal rate. So we're looking at about 40 minutes of actual time making the time lapse here. So the first thing I'm going to do is print out or cut out all those rainbow behind the Nyan Cat. So I just cut out one of the tails and I'm going to transfer that into all 6 colors. Alright. You might see the camera blip there real quick because I was trying to pull the purple off the roll and it came off pretty quickly, a little bit more quickly than I thought, and the whole thing, the whole tripod actually jumped, and it took me a few seconds to correct it, but at this speed, 4 times the normal speed, it's really hard to tell that anything even happened. It just appears as a little glitch. So now just transferring that tail onto all the different colors. This is going to be the first part of the time lapse, and I'm doing this first because the tails are actually underneath the Nyan Cat, and you obviously want to put those on first because you want to put the Nyan Cat image on top of them. So that's why I'm doing the tails first. Not bothering to stick any packaging tape onto it because then I'd have to do a whole bunch of different ones and it would take a long time. This one took at least 4 or 5 minutes automatically, but it sped up to a little bit faster than that, thank goodness. So we're cutting out all the rainbow tails now. Pretty soon I'm going to rip out all the extra tape there and we'll see how well I cut out all the tails. So working on that now. Got the red, orange, highlighter yellow. I was going to do the regular yellow, but it didn't look as cool as the highlighter, so I went with that as well. And I did have a few choices for the blue. Decided to go with the aqua. And I'm sure you guys were probably wondering, no, I'm not going to play the Nyan Cat theme song for this, but I did have it stuck in my head the entire time I was making this. It's one of those tunes that will definitely get stuck in your head. And if it does get stuck in my head, it stays there for about 2 days. So I was definitely not going to play it for this time lapse. One of the things you can do is they have a whole bunch of videos on YouTube where they have like the unlimited, or it's like the 10-hour video of the Nyan Cat theme song, which is pretty crazy. But you can turn one of those on, open this video in a separate window, and then just mute this video and listen to the Nyan Cat theme song for the whole video. Probably make it sound really cool, even though I'm sure it'll get stuck in your head after that. So now working on the actual Nyan Cat image, putting a whole bunch of black tape down first. And for this one, I am definitely going to use a little bit of packaging tape there, some of that DuctTapeStuff Brand HD clear tape. And the Nyan Cat is a pixelated image, so that makes it fairly easy to cut out, but the only thing is that you have to make sure when you're cutting out pixelated images is that the design is totally straight, because all the lines are straight images and they come to a point on squares and pixels. So if you don't cut one exactly straight, you're going to see that, and it's going to take away from the image a little bit. So when you're making a pixelated image, you always want to make sure that you're cutting in straight lines, or as close to straight as you possibly can. So just going all the way around there, that'll cut out the actual image there. Now I got to very carefully peel up all of the packaging tape, a little bit of the paper left over, and getting a little bit of the extra kind of residue off the board there. Sometimes the packaging tape gets a little stuck on there a little bit. So now just very carefully peeling up that imprint of the Nyan Cat. Alright, now we're very carefully going to peel it up. This Westcott board is still pretty new, so it definitely holds onto the tape a lot more than my other mats I've had in the past, and that wears off a little bit after the board gets used to having tape on it. It's just that the new surface really grabs onto the tape a lot, so that's why you're seeing me take a little bit more time pulling up this image than I did in the past. So now I have the whole image printed out, and you see how it actually goes on top of the rainbow tails there, as you can tell, definitely with the tail of the Nyan Cat. So I got that stuck on. That's the imprint. Now we're going to work on the feet and the tail, which is in gray. So I just got to cut out all those little squares. Like I said before, not using any packaging tape for this one. It's pretty simple. I can figure out exactly where to put it. So cutting out the back feet. Then I'm going to work on the 2 front feet. Alright, So now I'm going to transfer those onto the image. I'm actually looking at the image to my left on my computer, so I have a giant, image of it pulled up so I can see exactly how it looks, because I would usually just, compare it with the paper piece, but it's a little bit easier to compare it to the actual giant image on the computer instead, because the paper piece does get all messed up, as you can tell when you're cutting through it like a whole bunch of times. I cut through a lot of the same sheet over and over and over again in this video, and you'll see that coming up. So that does what that completes the bottom feet and the front feet and the tail. Now we're going to work on the outline of the head, which is also in gray. So I'm going to seal part of that down. And then eventually we're going to work on the Pop-Tart body that the Nyan Cat has. That's going to be one of the hardest parts. So just very carefully going around the gray part of the Nyan Cat head, and then we're going to line that up on the rest of the painting. This is definitely the most complex painting that I've made in a time lapse. One of the most complex paintings that I've made overall since I started making things out of duct tape. So you guys did ask for more complex things, so this is definitely gearing with that tradition of making things a little more complex. And you can really start to see the Nyan Cat take shape on there. Alright, so now we're working on the outside of the Pop-Tart, which is kind of that almost that beige colored. It's actually a little bit lighter beige than that on the actual image, but the only color that Duck Brand makes that's closest to that is beige, so I went with that. So we're just cutting out that, and you'll notice that there's a pink portion of the Pop-Tart body inside this portion, so I'm really just cutting this piece out for that outline, and then I'll cut out a pink portion and stick that on top of this beige piece. So there's a lot of work for just an outline pretty much. So now you can start to see the cutout of the head there, which is kind of funny. Now what we're going to do is very carefully going to align it on top of here. And the thing with pixelated images is that they don't always come out exactly the way you want them to. So you kind of have to play around with them until you get the right way. They might not all match on the points like you want them to, but you have to come to a compromise in between and work out the best you can. So now we're going to work on that pink Pop-Tart body. And we'll work on all those little spots in between at the very, very end. So like I said, there's a lot of different packaging tape going onto this piece. I think this is the third or fourth layer of packaging tape that I've stretched over top of this paper image piece. So I'm cutting through a lot of it when you do cut through like that part there. Like that's cutting through 4 layers of packaging tape plus the paper plus the duct tape underneath. So you have to kind of push down really hard. And I was trying to be mindful of that when I was making this. I didn't want to use packaging tape on all the pieces because 5 or 6 layers of packaging tape is a lot to cut through, and just make it harder for you. So now we're working on that pink Pop-Tart body. Once again, you can see the cutout of where the head is. This is going to go directly on top. There's a lot of great layering in this time lapse. A lot of great layering and pixel decoration. This is basically layering decoration at its finest, is when you use it for pixelated decoration. So now we're cutting out the nose and the eyes and the mouth, and there's kind of a funny story with the white eyes. I'll show you that in a second. So cutting out the eyes there, and then when I peel this up, you'll be able to see all those images that I cut out. So there we go. Now I just got to transfer those up to the image up here. Once again, I'm looking at my computer to make sure that they all line up, because they all do line up in some way in a bunch of straight lines. Now you can really start to see the Nyan Cat. There he is. Alright, so I got the nose, got the other eye, and now for this part I needed the white there, but I actually ran out of white duct tape, so I had to use the mustache and then cut out a cube in between the mustaches. And that's something I haven't done very often on the channel, but every now and then when I run out of a separate color I have to do that. And I'm going to do the process again. For the cheeks, it's not quite the same pink as the hot pink, so I decided to go with the pink that's in between the pink polka dot tape. And that was that perfect kind of blushing color pink that I needed for it. And you can tell it's a big difference from the hot pink that's on there. So now we have to work on those tiny little dots that are on the Pop-Tart body, and that'll be the last part of this time lapse. So working on that now. Hard to believe I've been talking for almost 10 minutes. It sure doesn't seem like it, but well, time flies when you're having fun. So now I got to cut out all 10 of those images, just sticking them on now. Looking at my computer to make sure I'm putting them in roughly the right locations. I'm sure they're not exact, but this is pretty much my own version of the Nyan Cat. So sticking all those on. And that pretty much wraps up this time lapse. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and it's on the Nyan Cat, which is pretty awesome. So catch you guys next time on the channel. Hopefully you liked the video.